Hello mathematicians, hope in this video when getting a little bit of practice you can say I can solve quadratic equations by using the quadratic formula. In this video we're going to look at an example and then we're going to derive the quadratic formula and then use the quadratic formula to solve the original problem. So we're given 4x squared minus 11x plus 4 equals 0. This quadratic equation here is not factorable, and so we need to use the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is going to be used either when the equation is either not factorable, or if maybe just the a is greater than 1 and you think it's a simpler method for you to just use the quadratic formula rather than just factoring. So let's go ahead and let's pause this for a second and let's go ahead and let's derive the quadratic formula. So we look at the general quadratic equation of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are all constants. And we're going to solve for x in this general quadratic equation by completing the square. So in order to do that, well, we need to divide by a. So if we divided this whole thing by a, because we want to get rid of this coefficient right here. So if we divided by a, we get x squared plus, and b over a, because b is the constant, so it'd be b over a x plus c over a, and 0 divided by a would just be 0 still. And now we need to move this c over a over here. So we're going to subtract c over a from both sides. That would give us x squared plus b over a x equals negative c over a. Now we need to find our b over 2. So our b over 2 would be b over 2a. And now we need to square it. So that would give us x squared plus b over a x. So our b over 2 is just b over 2a, and we need to square it and add that to both sides. So plus b squared over 2 squared, so that's 4, a squared. We need to add this to both sides. This equals b squared over 4a squared minus c over a. So now on the left side we can factor this, and we see that this is a perfect square trinomial. So that would give us x plus b over 2a, and that whole quantity squared. It is a perfect square trinomial. So equals, and let's just keep the right side the same for now, equals b squared over 4a squared minus c over a. And now I want to go ahead and let's find a common denominator on the right side. So we need this to be 4a squared on the bottom. So I need to multiply this by 4a over 4a. And if I were to do that, well, the left side wouldn't change at all. We'd still be left with x plus b over 2a, that quantity squared, equals b squared over 4a squared minus 4. So I'm going to multiply this 4a times c over 4a, and a times a is going to be a squared. Now I can go ahead and add this right side over here. So that would give me x plus b over 2a, that whole quantity squared, equals b squared minus 4ac, that whole quantity, over 4a squared. And now I can go ahead and solve for x. So I need to solve for x. Let's take the square root of this left side and the square root of this right side. So that would give me x plus b over 2a equals the square root of all this stuff, so plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all of that over 4a squared. And now I just need to subtract b over 2a from both sides, so minus b over 2a from both sides, and that would give us x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, that whole quantity over 4a squared. And now I just need to simplify this right side. Let's go ahead and see if we can simplify this a little bit more. So let's do that by, let's take the square root of the denominator down here. So that would give us x equals negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of, well, the numerator stays the same, b squared minus 4ac, and that quantity over, well, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a squared is a, so over 2a. That quantity over 2a. Now we can see we have common denominator right here. So now we can add these together to fully simplify. So that would give us x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, that whole quantity, all of it over 2a. And there you have it. There is your quadratic formula. You will know to love this quadratic formula right here. So now let's go ahead and let's take this and apply it to our problem that we started with originally. So we're looking at 4x squared minus 11x plus 4 equals 0. So what we need to do is we need to plug these values into our quadratic formula. So that's going to give us x equals negative b, and our b in this case is negative 11. So negative 11, so that'd be positive 11. So 11 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So negative 11 squared, so 100. I'll just plug it in right away, I guess, just to show all our steps. So negative 11 squared minus 4 times 4. Our a is 4, so we plug that in right here for a, and our c is also 4, so we plug that in right there, and we put that whole quantity, all of that, over 2a, so our a is 4 again, so we go over 2 times 4. Now we need to just go ahead and simplify this. So this is going to give us 11 plus or minus the square root of negative 11 squared, that's 121, minus 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64, so minus 64. All of that over 8. So that's going to give us x is equal to 11 plus or minus the square root of 121 minus 64. That's going to give us 57, square root of 57, and that whole quantity over 8. And this right here is going to be our final answer. The radical does not reduce or anything, so this right here is going to be our final answer after we plugged our values into the quadratic equation. So I know that was a fairly long video. Deriving the quadratic formula is a little bit lengthy. However, now that we know it, we can just use this and plug our quadratic equations into this formula to solve for our roots. So that's it for a video. Hope after watching this and getting a little bit of practice, you can say, I can solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula.